So one of the things about Quality Matters that I really got out of the whole process in terms of my own teaching was it provided a framework by which I could design my course so that everything was very much outcomes based. I always have outcomes in mind when I'm planning assignments and different activities and things like that, but it was kind of more formalized because one of the requirements is that you, at the beginning of each module, for example, have a very clear list of all the measurable objectives that you're trying to get your students to achieve by the end. And so it kind of makes it very easy to get to all those things if you make sure that every single thing that you're doing in the course directly connects. That way you don't have extra clutter, I guess you could say, distracting things that maybe you want your students to do, but you're not entirely sure what the purpose is of it. And so that stuff's all gone, basically, at this point. So, yeah. If I had the opportunity to give advice to a faculty member who was going to go through the Quality Matters certification process, the first thing I would say is I would probably plan the course from scratch, even if you already have a lot of materials. I would start with a very clear design wherein everything that you're doing is linked directly to your outcomes, and that those outcomes are directly linked to the course competencies. So because if you kind of design the whole thing around that, then you're not going to have any kind of extra stuff that's unnecessary and distracting, and it's also going to help to really stress some of the organizational requirements that Quality Matters certification entails. I would also say to read the rubric. I tell that to all my students all the time, and they don't always do it. But if you really want to go through that list and look at all the details, because even somebody like myself who's relatively detail oriented when it comes to designing these classes and stuff like that, I read through the requirements and thought that I had addressed everything, but I hadn't. There were a couple of things that I ended up having to make changes to during the process after the initial review. So there was just two things, and they kind of had to do with accessibility. And so I would strongly recommend looking through as best as possible, kind of looking through all of the whatever documentation you've been given, or if you have a chance to actually look at the rubric. That way you can, kind of make it as easy as possible, because the review panel will probably look carefully. I mean, they're very likely to look very carefully at every one of those criteria to make sure that everything's met.